When asked if someone told 50 Cent if the energy there was off or if he went to something that felt odd, 50 replied, "He asked to take me shopping. I thought that was the weirdest stuff in the world because that might be something that a man says to a woman." He would go on to say, "From that, I wasn't comfortable around him." 50 Cent would go on to discuss the brutal hotel surveillance video released in May, which showed the Bad Boy founder horrifically attacking his ex-girlfriend Cassie.
The courtroom felt charged as the judge prepared to speak the words that would end Diddy's era of untouchable power. Cameras locked in, jurors unmoved, and the outside world seemed to pause. Then, calmly and precisely, the judge delivered the sentence, a shocking and disturbing prison term that wealth, influence, or legal maneuvering could no longer delay or escape from accountability and consequences that last forever.
The brutal video, saying first he denied that even happened, and then the tape comes out, so that means everything that N-word says is a lie. When someone watches that, if they have a daughter and they can imagine her being under those circumstances, that stuff is crazy. Like they let him get away with it. With all the influence and power you have, the person you're with is supposed to be a part of your life, not be forced. 50 Cent has long touted his plans to make a docu-series about his longtime rival. When asked what made 50 want to produce the series, he replied in part, "I'm the only one from hip-hop culture that's produced quality projects." 50 Cent and Diddy have collaborated on a few songs together, and when 50 was an unsigned rapper more than 20 years ago, he used to ghostwrite for the Bad Boy founder. But 50 Cent made it clear the two just worked together. He replied in part, "I wouldn't call it a friendship because there would be disappointment between us if we didn't speak to each other. There's points that we work together." 50 Cent would go on to credit Jennifer Lopez, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, who 50 Cent said told Diddy he would work with him as a songwriter in the beginning of his career. 50 Cent said this occurred when he was getting back to work after being shot several times in May of 2000. He would recall, though, one time when Diddy called and 50's oldest son's mother answered the phone and 50 refused to talk to Diddy. 50 would go on to say he didn't want to answer the phone because he didn't want to ever party or hang out with him. He replied, "Puff is a business person. When people call him a producer, I see people that were taken advantage of who produce things that he took from them. He got credit. He's not a producer. He's been able to take advantage of the business and the creatives in it."
In that instant, Diddy did more than flinch. He unraveled. He shouted in anger, his voice tearing through the chamber like a man watching his empire collapse in real time. This was not the polished mogul of red carpets and rehearsed smiles. This was a man cornered, stripped of control, forced to face the reality that justice had finally reached him. Witnesses say he slammed his fists on the table, tears mixing with rage as he accused the court of betrayal, and warned the world would regret turning on him. No one reacted, not the jurors, not the attorneys, not the judge. The decision was final and the punishment severe. Prosecutors presented overwhelming proof, testimony from former staff, recorded conversations, financial trails pointing to hush payments, and accounts of abuse that revealed a far darker truth than rumors ever suggested. It shattered the image he built for decades and left the courtroom frozen, marking the exact moment power failed and accountability replaced fear for everyone watching inside and beyond those walls in silence and disbelief that day.
Was saying that she had told Diddy that we were just talking about this, that being the sexual traumas that she experienced, and then obviously with Cassie's lawsuit it really brought out more things. And then Diddy's on this recording saying, well, you bought me the videotape to look at what we do. Can you get some sleep and we'll talk to you later, or later talk to KK. I need your support, please. If you need anything, call. He said, I need your support, please. If you need anything else, call KK. And then Jane and Diddy spoke on the phone that day. We hear another recording from the same day, November 19th of 2023, still same instance where Jane didn't know she was being recorded, and Diddy can be heard on this recording saying, I really need your friendship right now. I called you back to make sure you're breathing. You know you don't have to worry about nothing else, and nothing else implying about her rent, her financial situation. And then Diddy said, please pray for me. I'll pray for you. I need your friendship. And so it was kind of interesting to hear this. I mean, you know, for us in the press and the media, we've all heard Diddy's voice. I think for the jurors, I'm always wondering what's going on in their head when they're hearing this recording, because as much as, you know, the defendant was a little animated sometimes prior to the judge kind of admonishing him, you really never hear from him. And so I'm wondering all the time when we hear him through his mouth, through his words, allegedly, I'm always wondering what's kind of going through their mind as they're kind of hearing this. Before what I even saw of them, Jesse, it seemed like they were just kind of listening to all of this listening to this and taking it all in.
Well, I wonder if an argument could be made that will be probably made by the prosecution. He did this purposely because he had consciousness of guilt. He knew the Cassie lawsuit. He knew other people could come forward and say something, and he was basically trying to have her on tape, maybe acting like he didn't know this was being recorded, but having her on tape, taking notes. Everything was consensual. This was just freaky, right? We're all good. I'm here for you. Again, that could backfire and be quite problematic in the eyes of the jury. Him recognizing that he needs to get everybody else on the same page to say that nothing bad happened, and that, because he realizes that this could be quite problematic. And it seems to me, because we found out that she was basically with him until weeks before his arrest, she was there for another important event. Didn't she testify that she was there when CNN published the hotel surveillance footage of him purportedly beating up Cassie Ventura, and was also there for his planned response, and was also there I think it came out today, his Instagram apology that he released 2 days after the tape was published by CNN. She was a part of all that, right? She was there for all that.
Yeah, honestly, Jesse, in my notes, when they finally played the apology video that I've been thinking that they were going to play possibly even on day one of trial, I wrote finally, literally finally with 4 exclamation points, because I'm like, when are they going to show the jury this apology video? But yes, around this time, it was May of 2024.
The revelations exposed secret events, manipulation, violence, and years of cover-ups. When the final gavel fell, it felt larger than a legal ruling. It was a cultural reckoning. Outside the courthouse, supporters and protesters collided. Some clung to the music, insisting the artist who shaped their lives could not be capable of such acts. Others raised signs demanding justice, accountability, and an end to celebrity immunity. Online, reaction exploded instantly. Hashtags surged worldwide, clips of the outburst replayed non-stop, and commentators argued whether this marked hip-hop's most dramatic collapse. Inside the industry, separation began immediately. Contracts were withdrawn, credits quietly removed, and sponsors rushed to distance themselves. Former allies erased photos, deleted posts, and chose silence, understanding that association now carried lasting consequences. The moment signaled a shift, proving fame could no longer shield power from public judgment and legal responsibility across culture, media, and institutions worldwide in real time for everyone involved.
And again, these are the center of the racketeering charge, the elaborate sexual episodes. They are center of the sex trafficking charge, that she was trafficked to engage in commercial sex acts. And she testified that these voyeuristic sexual episodes of her having sex with escorts in front of Combs, that this was introduced to her within the first year of their relationship. It was defined by, as she claimed, Astroglide, this lubricant, baby oil. She testified how these happened at multiple hotels and locations. Travel component is important. She testified how she tried to avoid kissing, but Combs told her she had to kiss the escorts, how these would happen weekly. They were so frequent, how she voiced her objections to the freak-offs. In fact, there was an email that was presented in court that Ventura and prosecutor Emily Johnson read back and forth. It was between Combs and Ventura, and she apparently writes Combs how she wants to have sex with him, and he apparently responded, "So who you going to bleep? Want to call someone?" And she responds to the effect that she wants to have sex with him. And he says, "Are you crazy?" And she ends up messaging him, "I want to talk to you about something tomorrow, going to sleep, love you." Combs apparently responds back, "Is it going to stress me out? What is it about?" And Ventura responds, "Freak off, it can wait, it's not a big deal." Combs responds, "Now you don't want to do it anymore. Oh, I already know. You're so predictable." And actually, in another message to Combs, she apparently wrote to him regarding the freak-offs, "This is all we do." And what she claims she went through was horrific. Allegations that Combs had an escort urinate on her, that she began to choke because of the sheer amount of urine. Another allegation regarding Combs' nipples that I don't even want to get into. Yesterday, she even testified that she had to have freak-offs when she had UTIs or sores in her mouth. Now, Anthony, these are lurid, disgusting descriptions, but these are important for purposes of sex trafficking, right?
Absolutely. I think it goes to show that these are the type of acts that Ms. Ventura is not going to willingly and consensually engage in, right? And I think a lot of what the defense is going to argue is that this was part of a swinger lifestyle and a swinger relationship that she willingly participated in. But these are not normal sex acts that even in the cases I've handled that involve swingers, that swingers would participate in. And additionally, it's let's be honest, it goes to the heart and emotion of the jurors that are going to be deciding guilt innocence in this case. And so it's extremely important for the prosecution to get that point across.
And particularly that these were with sex workers. That's what makes it the sex trafficking component. And I think I have to say, the jury might be confronted with a question: how on earth can anyone have consented to this? But look, the defense will talk about the length of this relationship and whether or not she didn't agree to any of this. And here's what's interesting. So a lot of what she said is almost verbatim to what she described in her initial lawsuit, or the complaint that she filed against Sean Combs back in November of 2023. But the key to this, and what purportedly makes this a crime and goes beyond just kinky sex, is force, fraud, coercion. And she explained that while she first agreed to make Sean Combs happy, her partner, she claims this all escalated and she voiced her objections. And I would say to further force or coercion, because the idea is, why didn't you stop this? She testified how she fought back, and she claimed it would make him more violent. But Ventura testified, he would smash me in my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head if I was down. When asked how frequently was Sean physical with you during your relationship, she responded, too frequently. She was asked, were you ever injured as a result of these incidents? She replied, yes. I would get knots in my forehead, busted lips, swollen lips, black eyes. The whites of my eyes would be red, bruises all over my body, just depending. And yesterday she testified that Combs threw her into a bed frame, and the jury apparently even saw a photo of her eye afterwards. She sent it apparently to Combs, telling him so that he would remember what he did. And apparently there was another communication from D-Rock, this is one of Combs' security guards, where he claimed she needed to ice her face.
Even longtime allies chose silence, unwilling to risk being dragged down alongside him. Within hours, Diddy's once-towering billion-dollar empire resembled wreckage, and the image he spent decades polishing was reduced to a mugshot and a viral clip of a rage-filled courtroom collapse. Yet the most unsettling part is not what unfolded before the judge, but what may follow next. Legal insiders believe this sentence could mark only the opening chapter. Reports suggest additional investigations are already taking shape, subpoenas being drafted, and new names quietly coming into focus. Prosecutors have hinted that the conviction could unlock cases against others in his orbit, people who enabled, ignored, or actively took part in his hidden operations. If those threads are pulled, the consequences could spread far beyond one man and shake the entire industry. For now, Diddy waits to be transferred, his angry shout still echoing in the memories of those present. The private jets are gone. The mansions and entourages that once shielded him no longer exist. What remains is the stark reality of prison walls and the awareness that the world now views him not as an icon, but as a warning. This is not merely a verdict. It is a cultural fracture, a moment when fame, fortune, and fear finally fail to bury the truth. As his anger turned into defiance, the illusion of untouchable power collapsed for everyone watching.
Up in Mount Vernon, New York, just about 20 miles away. And even though they both had success in music, they both rose to fame representing the city of New York and the rap scene there, they have been longtime rivals. In 2006, 50 Cent released a diss track about Diddy. So almost 20 years ago, this goes back a long way. And in that diss track, he says, quote, "Who shot Biggie Smalls? We don't get them. They gon' kill us all. Man, Puffy, know who hit that expletive? Man, that expletive soft." Now 50 is accusing Combs there of knowing who killed his friend, the notorious B.I.G. Christopher Wallace. Wallace and Puffy were incredibly close, but Wallace was shot and killed in a drive-by shooting in Los Angeles in 1997, and no one has ever been charged for pulling the trigger. This all happened during really the height of the East Coast-West Coast rap rivalry of the 90s, which involved Suge Knight, who we mentioned earlier. 50 Cent has also accused Diddy of orchestrating the murder of death row rapper Tupac Shakur, who died in 1996 in a Las Vegas drive-by shooting. This is Dwayne Keith D. Davis. He was arrested in September 2023, and he is the only person facing charges related to Tupac's murder. But 50 Cent has continued to push the allegation that Sean Combs either knows something or did something for Tupac to end up dead, though Diddy has denied that. But in a 2023 Instagram post, 50 wrote, "Damn, so Pac got lined by brother love, LOL, time to lawyer up, expletive might get sticky," with a pic of Suge Knight in a car with Tupac. Diddy, who has a lot of names, Puff Daddy, Puffy, Puff, and brother love is one of those other names. Now from Diddy's side of things, again, he's denied having anything to do with Tupac's murder, and he's also denied having anything to do with Christopher Wallace's death, and he's denied publicly having issues with 50 Cent. Here's what Combs said when he was asked about a beef with 50 in a 2018 interview with the radio show The Breakfast Club, Power 105.1 FM.
Hey, yo, I don't have no beef with
I don't know why.
With Fifth. He loves me. He loves me.
Do y'all really
can't
have
see
a
it?
beef?
I mean, y'all can't see it.
No, we can't see
Y'all
it,
can't
man.
see that he loves me?
But see,
you really think that's hate?
If you look at 50's social media, you can see he has a lot of posts about Diddy. And this is what he posted the day that federal agents in Miami raided Combs' mansion ahead of his arrest on the charges that he's now on trial for. 50 Cent posted on X, "Now it's not Diddy do it, it's Diddy done. They don't come like that unless they got a case." 50 Cent also included a link to his G-Unit clothing brand in that post. While Diddy in the Breakfast Club clip said that 50 Cent actually loves him and there was never a beef, on the stand this week, Capricorn Clark said otherwise. Clark said that she was at this press event at MTV with Diddy and 50 Cent was also there, all of this happening in New York.
The trial itself unfolded like a public spectacle. Each day delivered fresh headlines, new witnesses, and revelations that slowly dismantled the mythology Diddy had spent years building. Stories once whispered behind closed doors were now spoken under oath and broadcast worldwide. Former assistants recounted nights defined by chaos and control. Security staff described violent outbursts followed by urgent, quiet phone calls. Anonymous insiders detailed contracts allegedly designed to silence those who might speak. Piece by piece, a legacy that once appeared invincible was taken apart in front of the world. As the evidence mounted, observers noticed the change in Diddy's demeanor. The confidence of a man who believed money guaranteed protection disappeared. In its place came anxiety, hurried whispers to his lawyers, frantic notes, and uneasy glances toward the jury. Those inside the courtroom said it felt like watching a king lose his crown in real time. Each testimony stripped away another symbol of power, revealing how unstable the foundation truly was. The case shifted decisively when financial records were introduced, tracing payments meant to quiet accusers, emails instructing staff to keep certain events off official records, and private flight logs that matched survivors' accounts with chilling accuracy. These details formed patterns, not accidents. Patterns of secrecy, manipulation, and control that could no longer be dismissed. When the judge finally announced the sentence, those patterns collapsed at once. Witnesses described Diddy's voice as a mix of fury and despair, the sound of someone realizing escape was no longer possible. The system he once believed he influenced had turned away. Court officers stood ready while his bodyguards remained motionless, stripped of purpose. The man who once dominated boardrooms and charts could not even contain his own emotions. Online reaction was instant. Within minutes, the footage spread everywhere. Commentators analyzed every moment, influencers replayed the clip, and news outlets looped his breakdown, marking the definitive end of an era built on power, silence, and fear.
Boss, but this was a racketeer who was running a criminal enterprise.
Yeah, and I think the forced labor issue. I think they've done an excellent job with that. With the transcripts I've been reading, a lot of the people are saying that they worked for 20 hours, like that's the magic number, 20 hours straight. They, on a good day, we heard you'll get 4 hours of sleep. On a bad day, you'll get 4 hours of sleep. I think one of the what is it? A bodyguard said, if you sleep, you're getting fired. Like it was more rhythmic than that. I don't know, but you couldn't sleep around him, and I think that's what we saw with Making the Band. But again, we really didn't believe it. We thought it was for entertainment purposes. We didn't think someone could really act like this. And if an employee gave any pushback, they would either be terminated or they'd be threatened with reputational damage. They would be threatened with being blackballed, or they actually would be blackballed. And I think the government is doing an excellent job of proving forced labor.
And on that forced labor part, because on one hand, and I found it interesting, like George Kaplan, who is a former personal assistant for Diddy, like detailed all these, witnessing the abuse, he said, of Cassie. And then he was someone who would start work at 9:30 in the morning. And I think he said sometimes he went home at 7 o'clock in the morning the next day. And that's just what it was like. And he still, at the end of his testimony, said something along the lines of, he respects Diddy as this business person. In the eyes of the law and in this trial, what's the line between, well, this was a guy who just worked his employees really hard, to the point of where it was a forced labor issue where he was breaking the law?
So I think the perfect forced labor issue is, I think, Mia's testimony that we read through today. And, I think it's really easy for someone to say, well, hey, why don't you just leave? Well, one of the elements with forced labor is if you leave, you're threatened with reputational damage. You're threatened with being blackballed. You're threatened with psychological manipulation. So I think, that's a perfect example with respect to Kaplan's testimony. I think what was so important is when he said toward the end of his testimony, I believe, that Diddy's called him a god amongst men. Well, how did he become a god amongst men? Did he use his enterprise? Did he use his influence? Did he use coercion? Did he use threats? Did he use violence to become a god amongst men? So I think, whereas a lot of people may think that was really flattering toward Diddy, I thought that was more damaging than anything because of what he did to become a god amongst men. Does that make sense to you?
No, it does. And that's an interesting way to look at it, because at the end of Kaplan's testimony, we did a show specifically, and I found it interesting because, really, in the grand scheme of all the witnesses, George Kaplan's probably, by the end of this, someone that we may not even remember his name. But I just found it interesting where he was worked so hard. He was cleaning up the hotel rooms, and talked about all the baby oil and stuff that he was cleaning up in the hotel room. So you're just like, what kind of job is this? And then at the end, he's still like, it was almost, he was trying to be complimentary.
Online, the reaction was immediate and intense. Comment sections erupted with arguments, some fans struggling to accept what they had witnessed, others insisting that justice had been overdue for years. The internet quickly transformed Diddy's courtroom outburst into both a viral meme and a defining historical moment. What was unfolding was no longer about hit records, extravagant parties, or a towering business empire. It became a wider conversation about accountability within the entertainment industry itself. The message spreading across platforms was unmistakable. The era of protecting powerful stars from consequences may finally be coming to an end. Behind the scenes, panic set in. Executives who once ignored warning signs began scrambling to distance themselves. Lawyers reviewed old contracts, searching for exposure and liability. Public relations teams rushed to draft statements that quietly cut ties. Even fellow artists started reconsidering their silence, realizing that association alone could now carry serious professional risk. The ripple effect had begun, and no one wanted to be the next name pulled into the storm. For Diddy, however, the consequences are only starting. Legal experts warn that now the sentence has been handed down, more victims may feel safe enough to speak. Investigators could dig deeper, uncovering additional evidence and even darker truths. The reality awaiting him is nothing like the luxury he once commanded. There will be no private chefs, no special treatment, no escape routes. The prison system offers no immunity for fame or fortune. He is no longer positioned at the top of the pyramid. He is simply another inmate, another fallen figure, another cautionary tale reminding the world that power is temporary. That reality may explain why his cries in court felt so raw and piercing. They were not just reactions to a sentence. They were the sound of an empire collapsing, of an illusion shattering, of a carefully manufactured myth finally breaking apart. For decades, Diddy convinced the public that he was untouchable, protected by influence, money, and reputation. In the end, none of that mattered. Truth proved stronger than image, and justice proved stronger than the empire built on silence and fear. This downfall will be examined for years. Law schools will study it as an example of evidence overpowering influence. Music historians will debate it as one of the most dramatic falls from grace hip-hop has ever seen. Survivors will remember it as the moment their voices finally rose above fame and money. And it will stand as a warning to anyone who believes celebrity offers protection from consequences. In that courtroom, no one cared about chart positions, awards, or wealth. They cared about facts. They cared about accountability. Most of all, they cared about the survivors who had waited far too long to be heard.